welcome to episode 12 of the Charlie Chats Footy podcast with me, Charlie Casson. Big shout out to all the new listeners. Thank you for passing through. You've actually joined me towards the end of the series. You've actually got 4 episodes left of series 1, but there's a backlog of episodes for you to get stuck into. So yeah, crack on, and I hope you enjoy. Last week, we had on Max Ruston. If you've had a listen to that, thank you very much. Me and Max had a little chat about retail parks at football stadiums, and I realised it was quite a niche thing if you're a regular away day goer. So I asked all the listeners to email in with your favourite retail parks that you've been to from football stadiums around the UK when you've been going to away games and stuff. And I was absolutely blown away by the response. I had 2 people wrote in. 2 people wrote in. They're both called Jules. One of them's one of my best mates, and the other one was my old man. So yeah, I had 2 people write in. One of them was my mate, and one of them was my dad. And do you know what? I didn't know these stories, so I'm going to read them out. I'm going to read out Jules' Sonotti first, my mate Jules. So he said, "This is my story about a retail park. After a last-minute winner away at Villa Park this year, me and my mate had spotted a retail park on the way to the stadium. It was completely shut on the way there, and we were absolutely gutted. On the way home, we went back and we ate probably the best chicken shop we have ever eaten in our lives. It was pretty much a Dixie's Chicken headquarters. Probably the best way to celebrate a last-minute winner. Heung-min Son and a chicken burger with 4 wings and chips. Absolutely unreal." Jules, mate, I love you to bits, man. Thank you for writing in, because no one else did, to be honest, apart from my dad. My dad actually texted me it. I genuinely did not know this. Hand on heart, I did not know this story. I remember being pissed off at this, actually, because I couldn't go to the game for some reason. My dad went with my brother instead. So my dad said, me and Jack, he said, I don't know if you know this, me and Jack went to Wembley in 2011 to see United v City in the FA Cup semi-final. It was City's first Wembley appearance in 30 years, so the atmosphere was great. We had time to kill, so we went to the McDonald's in the retail park right by Wembley Way, and then decided, being the gadget man that I am, being the gadget man that I am, a trip to Curry's / PC World was on the cards. As I walked in, I saw 3 very suspicious teenagers walking around the store. Immediately, the sales assistant close by started to follow them. 2 of the men started talking to him, whilst the other one casually picked up a 42-inch TV near the entrance and ran out into the car park. Unfortunately, he tripped over the plug of the telly and fell over, smashing the TV all over the car park. All 3 of them ran off. And he's written at the end, ha, ha. It's the thought that counts. But that is a good story, to be fair. So Jules, thank you. I appreciate it. Anyone else listening that does fancy ever writing in, it can't be my mates and family and my dad every time. So get on it. There's enough of you that listen to it. I'm quite impressed with the numbers of people who've been listening to it. So if you can't, I've not got that many mates. I know I've not got that many mates. So yeah, write in if you fancy it. Let's have a bit of banter in the intro. Anyway, this is episode 12. It's with actor and ex-semi-professional footballer Ralf Little, who you may know from the Royale Family, 2 pints of lager and a packet of crisps, Death in Paradise, Edgware Town, Chertsey, Soccer Aid. He's done them all. We chat about his playing days and how it compares to being on stage. We chat about him playing centre midfield with Roy Keane at Celtic Park in the Man United Legends game. I ask him where he watched that 99 Champions League final, and to wrap it up, we discuss that if there was a film to be made about Yossi Benayoun, Ralf would be the man to lead the cast. I had a bit of problem with my mic volume in this one, so apologies in advance for any sound difficulties, but please give all the social media pages a follow, and if you have enjoyed listening to this today, subscribe and please share it wherever you can. Much appreciated. Got some news next week about coming to the end of season 1 and my plans for the next season. I got 3 more wicked guests after Ralf. And yeah, I can't wait to put them out. But for now, kick back, relax, stick your headphones in, get involved. This is episode 12 of the Charlie Chats Footy podcast with Ralf Little. Enjoy.
Yeah, no, I did grow up in the 80s, which is funny because for the last 10 years, it was like the decade that fashion forgot. And now you're looking and go, actually, it's back and it's cool. So yeah, all my pictures from when I was a kid, suddenly my horrendous neon Bermuda shorts and neon pink sunglasses was like, I had some style back then. All went wrong after that. Yeah, football. Well, actually, no, football wasn't a big part of my life. My dad wasn't a massive... I'd come from a family that's quite a big rugby fan family, not a massive... My granddad used to play a lot. And that was a lot of influence on my dad. And then my dad... my parents slightly had a somewhat... My parents were social climbers. Both very working class parents, but both... their parents were the first... Their parents were the first generation in their families that managed to both have like 2 jobs to send my parents each to university. So they were like, so they had this trying to like climb into the middle classes, I suppose is the fair way of putting it. So no money, but a lot of education, a lot of aspiration. And as part of that, you know, I think my parents would now admit that it's quite a misguided idea, but they were big. They had this misguided idea that, you know, football was, you know, not a very refined game, and rugby was a refined man's game, and that's what the educated people play. Which I look back now and I was like, no, it's just like the stereotype is, no, that's for posh boys and working class kids. Of course, it's not really like that. A load of the England rugby team, they're all working class Northerners, so it doesn't necessarily work like that. But you know, that was the I guess somewhat misguided idea. So didn't play a huge part in my life. The first time I remember really, really understanding and being into football in any kind of meaningful way was watching Italia 90, which was incredibly formative. And I can remember Roger Miller, I remember Beardsley, I remember David Platt's volley. Oh my God. Every kid on the playground, didn't matter if the playground was concrete, everyone was that volley that came over his right shoulder and then he spun and volleyed it back across his body into the left side netting. Absolutely unbelievable. Terrible marking. Absolutely unbelievable. And yeah, I sort of still miss that. Some of the things I miss from childhood are those days of like the next day at school going, Platt, David Platt, pass it over, and just everybody not even played, but just trying to practice a Platt volley and breaking their shoulders on concrete and stuff because it was worth it just to try and get it right. Yeah, Italia 90 was my first formative experience, definitely. And I remember being absolutely heartbroken when we went out to West Germany. And it didn't seem fair. That was an interesting thing. It didn't seem fair because we'd scored a great goal, I think. But I remember conceding the goal was a deflected free kick. They had a free kick and it hit the wall, I think, and it looped over. And Shilton was backpedaling and it couldn't quite get it and tried to tip it over and it hit the back of the net. And that seemed to when you're a 10-year-old, you think that the world has some sort of fairness. And you know, if you play better, you'll win. And, you know, it seems somehow like it was cheap. I can remember asking my dad going, but that can't count, can it? That doesn't count. Why does that count? Because it seemed unfair. Yeah. I guess that was a valuable early lesson. It's like, life isn't fair, kid. And then we went out on a penalty shootout.
Was that the Waddle?
Pierce, I think. Yes, Waddle, yeah.
Waddle, yeah.
Yeah, it landed last year, just over in Hammersmith. I know. What a player as well, Waddle, but God, anyone can miss a penalty.
Yeah. I saw do you remember the Masters?
Oh, yeah.
The indoor, their clip came up on Twitter the other day. Waddle played in the Masters, I think, when he was like in his mid-40s or whatever. And this goal he scored was unbelievable. Yeah, he's absolute ball. I played against him a few times and he's amazing. He's very, very, he's unlike any player I've ever played against, Chris Waddle. Because he's not, it's his body swerve, his body shape, the way he runs. And the ball doesn't move. So you think he's taken 5 touches and the ball's gone this way and that way and this way and that way. But actually the ball doesn't move. But the way he jinks, the way his sort of shoulder just jinks down, he's not fast. It's not about pace. It's about a body swerve this way and then that way. And it's just like you're doing the river dance, just trying to keep up with him. And all he's actually done is run in a straight line. But it's just totally, the way of putting you off balance is yeah, it's amazing. And without pace. And there's no tricks. It's not 2-step overs and then a shift. It's just the way he shifts his body position and the way his footfall even. I know that sounds like a weird thing. But just when you think the ball's far enough away from him, he'll sort of somehow both feet end up close to it at the same time. I don't know. He's incredibly hard
to read the biomechanics. When you're defending against him and he's running at you, it's very, very hard to read his biomechanics. You can't work out which way he's going to go. Very, very good player.
So you obviously you've played a bit in your time, played semi-professionally at a few clubs.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously you just mentioned you weren't brought up in a sort of football household. It was sort of predominantly rugby. When did you start to play and when did you realise you were decent?
So the story goes, I didn't play from when I was 12 to when I was 18, which in hindsight, I mean, look, you'll have a million people and I hate to be one of them, but let's just acknowledge that I am. Everybody's all got has a story about, oh, well, maybe I could have made it, coulda, woulda, shoulda, fine. My coulda, woulda, shoulda made it story is I didn't play from when I was 12 to when I was 18, apart from on the school playground. Didn't play at any, I played for a couple of years at a local kids team, but I didn't play in any kind of serious way from when I was 12 to when I was 18. And I think that 6 years of development is crucial for any young player who wants to try and succeed or do well, or, even if it's not become a player, still somebody who wants to get better. That's 6 years of crucial development as you're growing into your
100%,
shape and your understanding of the game or whatever. So I played on the playground. It was very obvious that I was a very good player on the playground because it was very obvious that compared to the people I was playing against on the playground, I was a very good player. You suddenly realize, you go, oh, wait, well, when I see two people approaching me, I realize that I can knock the ball through there. And you kind of, you get that thing of going, oh, right, well, I'm able to dribble past a few people and score. So I knew I could play, but didn't play from when I was 12 to when I was 18 because I was playing rugby instead, which I loved watching the internationals rugby, but I was really little for my age. Very, very short. I was not built for rugby at all. And I hated it. And all I ever wanted to do was play football. So that's basically kind of the one big childhood regret that I have. So 18, I do the Royale Family comes out. My life changes. I come to London. Everything changes. And from when I was about 19 or 20, I was saying to anybody who would listen, I was like, hey, I've heard of these charity football teams that, are there any games that I can get involved in? Just asking anyone who would have me. And I started playing for the Arsenal Ex-Pros in about 1999. The Arsenal Ex-Pro and charity team, and it's now mostly called the Arsenal charity team because all the ex-pros have like the legs that they're like, my legs won't take it anymore. So it's like a load of like faces from various parts of entertainment. But when I turned up, Ray Parlour was playing a few, Paul Davis, Chris White, I think Ian Wright turned up a few times. Like it was amazing. But what was interesting was I turned up as a green 19-year-old and I was playing with guys who were all 40 plus, and some of them 50 odd, 160 even maybe, older fellas, but we annihilated everybody, like 10-0. It was almost a bit boring after. It was like, 7-0 up at half time. Let's try and, have a bit of a laugh. Like we annihilated them. And I realized very quickly that the reason we annihilated them because they just passed the ball. Pass. That's all they did. They're 55. They don't want to run. They don't want to try and sort of get in the channel. They don't want to try and beat anyone for pace. They can't. They wasn't interested. What they did was they just couldn't get the ball off them, mate. I used to feel sorry for the opposition because they must have been like chasing shadows. And I slotted in at left back. And I think probably the first game I was trying to dribble around everybody and whatever. And I learned very quickly after I was dispossessed a few times that I was watching them going, do you know what? All they do is they just pass it. And so very quickly I was like, here's my game plan. When I get the ball, pass it to whoever's nearest to me. And you'd be amazed at what a better player that makes you. Amazed. Because also there's the joy of, look, when me and you play on a Friday morning, most of our experiences, you get the ball and in a split second, you've got four options. But you have to make a split second decision because, like, with due respect, if you pass to him, option one, he's marked by two people. Good player, but marked by two people. If you pass to him, he's not even going to get near it. He's not going to be able to control it. You pass to him and he's going to fall over, or you pass to, So you have to immediately not just pick an option, but you have to pick the right option based on the player. When you're lucky enough to be playing with 10 ex-pros, suddenly you can pass to anyone, anytime, and your decision-making becomes totally free and easy because then all you do is go, just play it simple. It elevated me from somebody who had a little bit of ability into somebody who genuinely had an understanding of the game. Yeah, I'm not a super world-class pro, but that was an education. That was what I missed out on 12 to 18. That certainly helped. But by the time I was, 19, 20, it's too late to ever consider hoping to become it's not too late ever. Most people don't make it to become a pro. Your Jamie Vardy's and Ian Wrights of this world are rare stories for a reason. You've usually been at some academy or something. So I was playing with these guys for a couple of years. Then I did a thing called The Match in 2004. Now, The Match was the precursor to what is now Soccer Aid. And in certain respects, it's a slightly different format. In certain respects, dare I say better in as far as there was more kind of edge to it, more football interest to it. The Soccer Aid's a wonderful thing, and I've played in it, and I felt very honoured and lucky to play. I played against Zinedine Zidane, Ryan Giggs, Luis Figo. Like, what an honour that was.
Thomas Craig was on the match, wasn't he?
Tom Craig was in the match, yeah. Yeah, he was. Me and him. So I was at left back and Tom was at centre back. Yeah,
he reckons he was beating Ian Rush to headers.
Well, I hope Tom doesn't listen. Listen, we all played out of our skins, to be fair, and Tom as well. There was definitely a couple of times I bailed him out. I'll see if I can find you a clip of where Tom's caught backpedaling and Paul Gascoigne's about to head it in at the back post. And I see this happening and I tucked in and leapt over Tom and Gazza and knocked it away. I'll send you a clip in case anyone's in any doubt. But yeah, no, Tom was great. Well, so the experience of it was in The Match, which was before Soccer Aid, it was on Sky. And the plan, rather than have, a team of ex-pros and celebs, for want of a better word, on one side and another team like that on the other side. The match was more experimental, and the experiment was, let's get a load of keen, faces who various levels, various abilities, but very, very keen and mostly very, very fit, and Tom Craig. And to be fair, Tom was 40. Tom was older than some of the ex-pros.
He listens to this, so he's going to.
Oh no, no. Well, Tom, I think was like 40 at the time, or maybe like late 30s, and he was older than. I think he was older than Rob Lee. Rob Lee, when we played against him, was still playing professionally. Rob Lee was no slouch. Although he's a mate of mine now, and I hope he doesn't listen to this because that's the only compliment I've ever given him.
I just watched him on Harry's Heroes. I think he's lost it a bit.
Oh, really? Excellent. Yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. I'm going to have to play him that. Send it to him. So this game, the idea was we got a load of faces and we had far, far, far inferior ability, but just maybe with a bit of organisation and keenness and motivation and whatever, we might be able to pull something off, even though we were massive underdogs. That was the experiment. Could it happen? And of course, the other team was Rob Lee, Brian Robson, Paul Gascoigne, Chris Waddle, Peter Beardsley, Bruce Grobbelaar. It's just insane for me. And, those guys now we think of as the previous generation of older footballers, but some of them were not long retired at this point. Like, they could still play. They were proper. And it was just like, it was a dream. It was an absolute dream. So we played in this game. And what we did was we trained with Graham Taylor, the late Graham Taylor, who is a fabulous, fabulous man. I love him, loved him. And Graham had been not most famous. Graham was known positively for being the man who managed to do incredible things with Watford Football Club. Then he was the England manager, and it went very, very badly when he was the England manager. And he didn't even qualify for the World Cup in 1994. And he was in the way that we do in this country, he was vilified and a sort of pretty hated figure. And that was sort of the public perception of Graham Taylor, just a sort of bumbling, not very useless, not great manager who fucked up the England job. Anyway, he, as a side note to Graham Taylor, by the way, he passed away a couple of years ago or a year ago, not long ago. And a lot of people started to realize, as it often happens when people die, is that he was a great, great man. There's this incredible clip of, I think it was either Luther Blissett or John Barnes who Graham had signed, I think, or Graham was managing at least at Watford. And the clip is, I think, somebody racially abused, casually as they did in the 80s, racially abusing either Luther or John. And Graham, as the manager, just turned around and said to this fan behind him, he said, that's a human being you're talking about. Can you please keep that down? That's not welcome here. He was just a great man. He just, he was wonderful, Graham. He really was. And anyway, football-wise...
Yeah, what was it like him coaching you?
Well, football-wise, he really knew his stuff. He really, really knew his stuff. And he suited us perfectly because not only did he know his stuff football-wise, but his main thing was he was a motivator, man. He would do these speeches to us that, like, I'll never forget. He played, is it M People or Desert? I think it's M People. You know that song, Search for the Hero Inside? It's like, he sat down, he said, I want you all to listen to this song and really think what it means to you. I'm sorry. Any other point in my life, I would have been like, this is the worst thing I've ever. It's like fucking David Brent motivational score, like terrible. Yeah. But you know what? For that week, we bought it. We all bought it. And once we committed to it, honestly, it was like a cult. We committed to this kind of his ideas about self-belief, no cynicism, just fucking pride, self-belief. Search for the hero inside you. So, like, honestly, all this stuff that even saying here makes me cringe because I'm a cynic. I'm a born cynic. But for that week, we bought into it, and honestly, it was extraordinary. It was extraordinary, and we all felt like fucking like a brotherhood, like these brothers who were going to battle together. And his motivational skills were extraordinary. I would have headed a brick if he'd have asked me to. He was amazing. It really was. So that was sort of his thing. Yes, the idea was to get us, but we're not going to get fit in a week. That's not possible. Some of us were fitter than others. I think I won the bleep test. But I was still playing loads. I was playing 4 or 5 times a week. So, and I was 24. So yeah, you would expect me to be fit. The night came and we're up for it. And we think we can do this. And again, for Graham to have got us to a point where we're facing up against, there's Brian Robson doing that coin toss in the middle, and I'm looking up and I'm like, I'm marking Peter Beardsley. Wait, what? I'm marking Peter Beardsley? That's insane. And then later on, I was marking Chris Waddle because they swapped, and then Wrighty came on and all this sort of stuff. And but we weren't scared. We weren't scared at all. We honestly thought we could pull something off, and that is a testament to the motivational skills of that man. He was unbelievable. Wow. Now the truth is, we lost. But that's not quite the story, because the story is they went 1-0 up just before half-time, but we walked off at half-time going, we're in this game. We're in this game. We're not down and out. There was a real expectation. I heard something like 10 million people watched it on Sky. I don't know if that's true, but there was a real expectation from everybody that we were going to get tanked 10-0. And we walked off at 1-0 going, we are in this game. We've had chances. We're in this game. We equalise. Jonathan Wilkes equalised with what he insists was deliberate, but I still swear it was a cross that accidentally mishit and it drifted in the far corner. But whatever, you take it, right? 1-1. We're in the game. And then in injury time, in the 94th minute of the second half, Ali McCoy nicked a winner, and we lost 2-1. But it did feel like a victory. It felt like it also felt like the correct result, because these were our heroes. We didn't want to try and show them up either. We didn't want to embarrass them in any way. We didn't want to be like, fuck you guys. So they walked off going, yeah, we're proud. We're the pros here, and we won as we should have done. And we walked off going, you know what? We gave them a scare, and it was like the perfect result. And
that was at St. James's Park, was it?
Yeah, 55,000 people.
Sold out.
Sell out. It was unbelievable. Wow. And people cheering for us like you've never. I mean, it's just insane. Like you'd never believe.
So how did you get to a point where you're playing for
semi-pro? So that's why we got into all this.
Yeah.
So do you know what? Hold on 1 second. I'm doing a podcast.
Oh,
bye.
Did you see my song?
No, I didn't see your song. I'm doing a podcast. Literally, you're in it now. Hi, speak to you in a bit. Sorry, that's my missus. Did you see my song? I don't even know what she's talking about. I should have played it to you, shouldn't I? I could have embarrassed her. So the other story of that night is this. My personal story of that night is we all, like I said, we went into it like brothers and going into battle, and we fought for each other, and we all cared about each other, and we all helped each other out, and we ran ourselves into the ground for each other. And it felt like the closest any of us will get to like a tournament, like a World Cup, where we just laid it all on the line for each other. And we're just a bunch of actors, you know. I'm probably sound like I'm being over dramatic now, but that's what it felt like. The other story to that night is that it just so happened, Charlie, that I personally had the game of my life. Of all times for it to come together. You know what it's like? Sometimes like you slide in for a challenge and like 9 times out of 10, it was a rash challenge and it's a red card or a penalty or whatever. But the 10th time out of 10, it's the most perfect challenge you've ever made. And everyone's like, how is that possible? Like, just like sometimes everything goes your way. Mate, that night, everything went my way. I must have made 5 challenges in the box that on any other day would have been a red card and a penalty. And all of them are like, saved a goal there, dispossessed Beardsley there. Oh, is it a corner? No, it's gone out for a goal kick. Like, it was just my night. Honestly, it was. I don't think I've ever played as well before or since, but it was my night. And off the back of that, I actually got a fair bit of interest, not only from semi-pro clubs, but I got a fair bit of interest from some lower league pro clubs as well. It's often repeated that like I was offered a contract. I wasn't offered a contract, but there was definitely a discussion being had with a couple of. Would you be interested in, maybe we've seen you and we're impressed? Do you want to come down and maybe train with us a few days? That kind of thing.
Can you name any clubs?
Yeah, well, Accrington Stanley were interested. Swindon Town, there was talk of going to train with. QPR. Let me train with them a little bit, which is my local club. So look, I'm very careful about going, well, I was out. They offered me a contract. No, that's not quite right. But there was something in the air off the back of that because it had gone so well that conversations were in the air to be had. And ultimately, I never had them. And I never had them because in 2004, I've done the Royale Family. People know who I am by this point. You know, I'm a known actor working very, very lucky enough to work at a level that I never dreamed I would be able to. And Two Pints was in its kind of pomp. It was 2004, so it was probably series 3 or 4, and it was at its peak really of popularity. And I would have had to give all of that up to go and play for 500 quid a week, which, don't get me wrong, is not to be sniffed at, but for 500 quid a week, which was less than I was getting on Two Pints, to play for a local club that I'd be beloved at by a few thousand people. But that makes me sound like a fragile ego. It's not like I wanted everyone to love me, but you know what I mean? It would have been walking away from a field that I love my job, and I was already lucky enough to work at quite a high level, to go and do something else that I would love, but starting off at least at a pretty low level. And let's be fair, who knows? I would have had to make that choice and then maybe not even made the first team.
Yeah.
So it was not realistic.
It was almost 4 years too late in a way. I mean, if that had happened slightly before Royal Family, who knows?
And 24 is late to even be trying to get into the game anyway. Unless you are Jamie Vardy making a name for yourself, and I think he was 24-ish or something.
When he went Leicester,
so it wasn't realistic. But it's nice to know. It's nice to know that somewhere out there were a few conversations being had of going, hey, do you think we should give that lad a call? That's enough. I'm happy with that. That's enough for me. The knock-on effect of that was, amongst those conversations, there were also non-league, semi-pro conversations, which I could very much do because, especially when Two Pints was on, I could rehearse Monday to Friday, shoot Friday night, play Saturday afternoon, and train on Tuesday night and Thursday night, which is the standard semi-pro setup. So I that happened, and I was already. Hold on, what had happened? That's it. I'd already signed. I'd played for the Arsenal ex-pros for Edgware Town.
Yeah.
And they said, do you want to come down and play for us after we beat the old boys at Edgware Town? And I said, yeah, sure. And I played a few games with them, but then I did the match, and I got a call from a lad called Mark Turner, who's actually still one of my best mates. He was the manager of Chertsey Town, and he said, hey, will you come down to, we'll pay you a bit more than Edgware, and we're higher in the league and we're going for promotion. I was like, yeah, all right, fair enough. I was only sort of semi-starting at Edgware anyway. So I went down to Chertsey, and I played a couple of seasons there and had a great time. And then I went a couple of leagues higher to Windsor and Eton. And I played, I think 2 seasons there or 1 season there. And on my debut for Edgware, I scored. On my debut for Chertsey, I scored. And on my debut for Windsor and Eton, I gave away a penalty. So
Slow decline.
swings and roundabouts, mate. Yeah. Although to be fair, it wasn't a penalty, and even the lad as he got up, I went, "That is never a penalty," and I went, "I know, sorry." I'm like, all right, fair enough, fair enough. I slid, like when somebody's trying to get across in, and you slide not them, but you slide the space that the angle to try and stop across along the ground going in. I slid the space. And he saw the ball was running out, so he just ran over my legs and fell over. Referee, penalty. I was like, what are you talking about? So yeah, I was fuming. So yeah, that was it. That was my history. That was my playing history, semi-pro history.
And it all came from that world-class performance at St James's Park.
Yeah, and I think probably everyone who signed me after that was a little bit disappointed. They were like, why don't you play as well as you did that night? That was amazing. I was like, it was a one-off. Give me a break.
That's class.
I tell you what, after that night at St James's Park as well, it was such a profound experience. I'm sure a lot of the lads who were there at the time might agree. Maybe they just think I'm being, over sentimental. But it was such a profound experience that for about the next 3 months, as a person, I was the nicest version of myself I've ever been and probably ever will be. I was just like, you're still infected with this idea of, brotherhood and kindness and battling for each other and support and motivation and be the best version of yourself and everything. After three months, it sort of dissipated and I just went back to being a cynical old fucker again. But for that 3 months, honestly, mate, I was a good person.
So how does it compare, right? Walking out and playing in front of 52,000 at St James's Park. How does that compare to being on stage and doing a curtain call, or being on set and just wrapping up on a film or a series? How does it compare?
It's a good question. And I guess my answer would be, it doesn't actually. I know that sounds like that. I hope that's not a cop-out, but they're not comparable to me. I feel like every time I walk out on a stage, okay, that's it. I'm trying to articulate what I'm thinking. Every time, if you walk out on a stage or a rap on a big film, that's your job, that's your career. And you're always hoping on some level that what you're doing is going to be a stepping stone to doing more things in your career, to being recognized. I don't mean recognized as like, oh, I know who you are. I mean recognized by your peers and respected. You're always hoping that, and it's a journey. It's all part of the journey. That's another stepping stone. What next? What next? What next? You step out in front, or same on stage, and you're hoping, certainly on opening night, that people will approve of it, and then you're hoping that you're going to deliver something for an audience, and then they applaud at the end, and you think this has been really rewarding. But that's the gig, that's your job, right? Walk out in front of 55,000 people at St James's, and I've been lucky to do it a few times. St James's, Old Trafford, I'm a United fan, full house. Celtic was unreal. That was something else, man. It was Man United legends against... I'll tell you a story about Celtic Park in a bit. Remind me to tell you about Celtic Park.
Yeah.
So in answer to your question, every time I did that, I thought, this is a privilege. This is a privilege. I'm incredibly lucky, and enjoy every second and play hard. Because to me, it is all about football. Like there's no... And it's just a friendly. Nah. It's not just a friendly. This is football. I mean, I'm like that when we play on a Friday morning. And
the FIFA tournament.
And the FIFA tournament, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it's either terrifying, or I always found I was pretty able to channel the adrenaline into focus. I was always good at that. And you want a kick of the ball in the first. If you can get a kick of the ball in the first 30 seconds, you're in great shape. Especially if you get the ball, control it, and just pass it easy. You're set up. Then you're away because you literally go. If the first ball comes to you, like, this is mental. Oh my god, what's going on? Then the ball comes to you, and you pass it, and you go, oh, I can do this. I know what this is. This is fine. And what I have found, I don't know if anyone else's experience is the same, who's not a pro footballer, but what I found is the crowd. Once you've had that first touch, it just melts away. It's playing football then. And everything's heightened. You see the ball bigger. You see, everything, like if you're on it, if your adrenaline's pumping, everything's heightened. And I certainly felt like I just moved that little bit quicker. It was that particular night it was magical. So, one is a job that I'm extremely privileged to do and I absolutely love doing. But the other, the football stuff, was just a series of experiences that, you can't buy. And very few people have. And even the professional footballers, they have it and they love what they do, and we're all envious of them. But like the times that I've done it have been so special that they're over the years people have said to me, oh, like when I was younger, when I cared about that, I was on stage at the BAFTAs when I was 19, I think, picking up a BAFTA with the Royal Family, which was a huge high. You can't believe it. Oh, wow. People are like, "What was that great?" I was like, "Yeah, it was great." Is it great getting invited to all these parties? And I gave Coldplay their first ever Brit Award at the Brits. So what was that like? I was like, "Yeah, it was good." Are all these parties good? Do you live the highlight? I'm like, "Yeah, it's good fun." Well, what's the best thing? Playing football on these stages without even breaking a sweat. That's the best thing.
Yeah.
What a dream.
Yeah.
How lucky. So yeah, that's the best answer I can give you.
Tell us about Celtic Park then.
Oh, so the funny story about Celtic Park is, I've told it loads recently actually, but it's a good story. So it's Man United legends against Celtic legends. And I started getting Celtic Park because I was talking about the crowd, right? And it was an evening game, and the crowd at Celtic Park, and I love them for this. So the match, Soccer Aid, all those games, a lot of the crowd is made up of families, and, people have brought their daughters along to see the Nikki from Westlife and the Ollie Murs, and the daughter's like, "Oh my God!" And that's. But what I'm saying is not necessarily your typical football crowd, and they all cheered. I'm grateful for every single person that was there, and it was lovely. And actually in the match, they'd all got to watch us over the week, so they all had like their favorite players that had been shown in the thing. So people had like little banners and stuff. It was mental, man. But at Celtic Park, there was none of that shit. They take it very seriously. So it was just all the Celtic fans. There was no United fans there at all. There was no one there in a red shirt. It was just a sea of green and white. And they were turning up to support Celtic. My God. It didn't feel, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure it wasn't like an Old Firm derby. I'm not being so naive as to say that, but it didn't feel like the usual sort of crowd that was there. It felt like it was like a cauldron. And we were booed when we were warming up, but like we were booed generally, but like, you could tell it was weird because you could still tell it was all like in fun. Like people would be like, no one would be like, no one's throwing stuff at you. They'd be like, they'd be like, "Hey, Ralf, give us a wave, you prick." And I'd be like, "All right." And then they'd be like, "Way!" And then so it was like, it was still in fun. So it was, there was not like, it was not, there was not animosity, but they were like, "Make no mistake, we're here to support our fucking team." So that was a different experience because you felt that pressure of the home crowd in a way that I've never really experienced before. And the atmosphere was just electric. They were amazing. Anyway, the story goes that it was me and Roy Keane in central midfield. Oh my God, look at that for a partnership. which is not, when I was growing up, a sentence I thought I would say, but me and Roy Keane in central midfield, and I'd already had a couple of interactions with him up to the point, like up to kickoff, and I'd actually found him to be incredibly, like, quietly funny, like dry, and really good. And I was very much enjoying his company. He was an absolute dude. I really liked him, but I did think, fucking hell, I better shape up here because I'm playing with Roy Keane in central midfield. That's how I started. Now the thing is, anybody who's listened to this who's ever played with me will know that I have. There's something about my game which I haven't yet talked about, which is, I mean, call it anger management issues if you like. I like to see it as fierce competitiveness. But I'm an extremely, I'd like to think, affable person in all walks of life, except when I cross a white line onto a football pitch, something in me just fucking changes. And I'm very kind of win at all costs. Now, over the years, people have complained to me about this and gone, "Oh, why are you shouting at us so much?" And it's the worst thing is, Charlie, the worst thing, it's never at the opposition. It's always at my own team. Which in fairness to Graham Taylor, he was right and I'm wrong, because Graham sort of, remember I said for those 3 months I was the nicest version of myself. Yeah. For about 3 months I was the nicest person to play football with ever, because I was like, "Unlucky mate, no worries, up you get, come on, let's go." Like I was just encouraging. And I'm so stupid, because the thing is, everybody played better for that. Me fucking screaming and shouting at them has never played and made anybody play better. But I can't help it. I'm just so competitive. And and as I've got older, I've really, with a certain degree of success, with varying degrees of success, I've tried to sort of beat that out of myself a little bit, because, I don't want to not be fun to play with. But I'm just very, very, very competitive. And over the years, as people have complained about this and they've said, "Mate, fuck off with you. What are you being like that for?" I've often said, my comeback has been like, "Well, fucking Roy Keane's always digging his teammates out because he expects the best." And their response, not unfairly, has always been, "You're not Roy Keane." So oh, yeah, fair enough. In fact, I saw the Michael Jordan documentary. It's amazing on Netflix, The Last Dance. And they all say to him, he was like, "Michael was not particularly nice to play with because he would dig you out all the time because that's what he expected. And you'd have to raise your game to try and play with it. He expected the best. And I found myself, even to myself, going, see, I'm just like Michael Jordan. And I was like, yeah, but I'm not just like Michael Jordan, am I? Because I'm not the greatest of all time. I'm just some chopsy actor who's just giving it large, shouting at his peers, who has no right to do this. So I am aware, for anybody out there listening to this, all my friends, my ex-friends, my fellow ex-teammates, I do know, and I am sorry. I really am. I am trying. Anyway, the story goes because of this part of myself, and I've been saying for years, hey, I'm just like Roy Keane in that respect. Ball gets passed to me from left. Me and Roy Keane after that. So the ball gets passed to me in the first few seconds. Me and Roy Keane in centre mid, and immediately my game plan is: whenever you get the ball, give it to Roy Keane. He's Roy Keane, right? And that's what I did. And what that meant was pretty quickly he was like, "Oh, I can trust him. He's not going to fuck it up. He can control the ball and pass it to me, and that's good enough." So it's going pretty well. I'm having a good game. I made a few tackles. Roy seems to be trusting me. We formed, dare I say, a partnership of sorts. Anyway, ball comes in from the left winger passes it to me. I hold someone off, take a touch, turn inside, and I fizz it across to Roy on this surface, a night game, slick surface, carpet, mate, carpet.
Oh, mate.
Proper balls that when you hit them, they fizz.
Under the lights as well.
Yeah, oh, mate, yeah. It's cold
makes the pass better, doesn't it?
Oh, mate, well, especially, and I've hit a daisy cutter and it's just gone, it's about an inch off the ground. And it sort of bounces just before, it bounces about halfway and then skids across the surface to Roy Keane. And then just as he goes to control it, it takes the only bobble I've ever seen on such a perfect pitch in the whole evening. It takes a bobble and he miscontrols it, right? And in that split second, I went, fucking hell, Roy, what are you fucking doing? Like that.
Oh my God.
And then as it came out of my mouth, I was like,
no.
What are you doing? Roy Keane! How dare what? You can't say that to him. What are you doing? And like an absolute shithouse, like the most coward. If I had any courage of my convictions, I would have continued to finish the sentence. But like an absolute shithouse. Halfway through the sentence, what actually came out of my mouth was, "Fucking hell, Roy! What, oh, mate? That is so unlucky. That is unlucky, mate. Next time."
That's brilliant.
It's bad, isn't it? It's bad. So yeah, there you go.
Mate, fair play for apologising to him. You started that out quick enough because he would have
massively.
had you.
Mate, he would have. I mean, I managed to get it out just before he turned around and gave me the stare. And I think basically he didn't clock what the first half of it was, but it was definitely a mistake. Yeah.
Oh, mate, that is quality.
And it also took a bobble as well. I mean, what's he supposed to do about that?
I'm surprised he didn't have a go at you for doing a shit pass, claiming it was a shit pass or something.
Well, actually, to be fair, I think I got away with murder on both counts there, didn't I?
So you're obviously a United fan.
Yeah.
You've obviously had some special time. Not so recently, but there's been some special times I'd imagine you've experienced. I want to touch on the 90s because they were obviously end of the 90s was probably the most successful season 99 of any English football team in the history of the game.
Yeah.
What are your memories of that season?
I remember it well. I remember Scholes. The treble was on, and which was the first step? Was it the FA Cup was the first step, or did we win the league first?
I think it was League, FA Cup.
Right. Okay. I mean, you're spoiled as a football fan.
It was League, FA Cup because I remember in the FA Cup it was the replay at Villa Park and Giggsy scored that goal, and that was like they all said then, right, this is on now. That's
it. The replay at Villa Park, exactly. And then in the FA Cup final, was it against Newcastle? I think Paul Scholes scored against Newcastle.
Scholes and Sheringham, was it?
Yeah. And you can tell you're spoiled as a Man United, as a football fan, when I'm even able to say to you, did we win the league or the cup first? Because to be honest, by that time, as a young football fan who didn't know any better, like you're just used to winning the league. It's just the thing that you do. And then every now and again you go, oh, did we not do it this year? Oh, no worries, we'll do it next year. Like that was what it was like. It was insane to be a United fan and during those 20 years really. So yeah, we got the league and that was kind of like, whatever, that's in the bank. We know we'll be fine with that. And then there's the FA Cup final and Scholesy. So when that Scholesy put that goal in against Newcastle, might even have been his left foot. I can't remember. But anyway, when Scholesy scored that goal against Newcastle, it was like, this is on. This is on. And I watched the Champions League final in Riley's Snooker Hall in Prestwich near Manchester.
Love that.
With my mate Emma. who was a huge Mad United fan, had a massive crush on Peter Schmeichel, which which I don't know why it made me laugh. It just did. But she was a huge fan as a kid. She used to go and watch him train and all that kind of thing. And we watched it, and it was, I don't know, it was like 92 minutes of misery. It was a really weird thing, because obviously everyone was like, oh, it was the best night ever. It wasn't the best night ever. It was horrendous. It was 92 minutes of absolute abject misery, because the chance has gone, or 90 minutes, whatever it was. And then Sheringham nicked that equaliser.
Yeah.
And it was from Giggsy. It was Giggsy had a shot. It just, the cross came in. Beckham delivered a cross. Cross comes in. And as it got headed away, you're thinking, you're desperately hoping, you're thinking, we need a miracle. Hopefully this cross comes in, somebody arrives in the box, bang, header. And as soon as you see the header get cleared away, you think, that's it, game over, we're done. And it comes out to Giggsy on the edge of the box, and Giggsy has a right foot, and as it's coming to his right foot, I'm like, never. And Giggsy swings, as left the oldest swinger in town, Giggsy's right. He has a swing at it with his right, doesn't connect very well, sort of hits it into the ground, and it bobbles a couple of times. This is my memory. I hope somebody's not going, that's not what happened. That's not what happened at all. Bobbles a couple of times, and Sheringham, I mean, a scrappy fucking goal.
Yeah.
But Sheringham missed the right place, right time, saw it coming on the turn, almost scooped it on its way and into the net. And it went mental, more mental than any. It just went mental. Respectful, actually. I'm glad there's no story about us trashing Riley Snooker, but it went absolutely mental. I'm sure every football fan has some moment of going, that was the miracle. That was the miraculous moment that just could not have happened. And they have it with their team or their country or whatever. But that was the one for United fans. And then it was like, Solskjaer scoring was like a dream. It honestly didn't seem real. And it also seemed sort of so easy. Like Beckham cross, flick on at the front post. I can't remember who. Sheringham again, maybe? Anyway, flick on at the front post. Yeah. And then Solskjaer's just unmarked, miles away, just sort of almost doing the split, sticks his right foot out, catches it. You wouldn't even call it a volley. It's just sort of like flicked a foot out, and then it goes. But
there's that famous commentary. It goes, and Solskjaer as well.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I know. It was, oh man. The first one felt just, the relief was insane. And the second one, I remember it felt like a dream. And it was so dreamlike that I remember thinking, it can't have, like, it had to have been offside. It seemed so easy. Yeah. It had to have been offside. There had to have been a foul. Somebody committed something. So I sort of couldn't celebrate for a few seconds, going, what's happened? What's happened? I must have looked like I was losing my mind, going, whoa, what's happened? And it was like, he scored. I'm like, but has he? Yes. It was just... It was unreal.
I've actually got a little story about the 99 final. So I grew up a United fan. My dad's a big United fan, and we're now both Barnet fans. But we did support United. Just it got too expensive going up there, and
sure, yeah.
So it was just easy to walk 5 minutes down the road and go. Barnet.
I'm also of the opinion that I don't begrudge anyone having like a Premier League team that they follow. Like it's, so a nice local team. So we grew up as Bury fans. Not grew up as Bury fans. I was from a rugby family, but if there was a team that my dad was interested in, it was Bury, which is where I'm from.
Good lane.
But my love of United, I hate to say, came when I went to see, I think it was a friendly, Bury against United at Old Trafford. And my dad took me to see it. It was really the only handful of experiences of watching football with my dad that I had. And he took me to see this game, and it played out, and I don't remember anything about it, but apart from watching this guy who looked like he just sort of barrel-chested, just walked amongst these mere mortals like he was toying with them, doing his own thing whenever he wanted, including, I think he missed, there was an overhead kick. Imagine my, like, whatever I was, like 11-year-old self or something, seeing an overhead kick right behind the goal mouth, the Bury goal mouth. This Man United player, overhead kick, which actually missed, but it was so just like outrageous and flamboyant. Eric Cantona. Oh. And that was, I'm like, I'm a United fan now.
That was it.
And that's how it happened.
That was it.
Yeah.
That's class. The story about the 99 final is, we, as a family, me, my brother, my mum and dad, we were in Salou, which is about an hour and a half south of Barcelona on the train. And we booked the holiday. My dad and mum booked the holiday long before the final. We obviously get to Barcelona. My dad knows we're going to be in Salou when the final's on.
Yeah.
So I think I was about 7 out there, and obviously
bit too young to like ask my dad to go to the game or whatever. But my dad says to my mum, right, I'm going off to Barcelona for the night. I'm going to go try and get a ticket. So he's outside the new camp about 4 PM or whatever, manages to get one.
Wow.
Manages to get one for the equivalent of probably now about 50 quid or whatever. So absolute bargain.
Mm-hmm.
But the story is he's in the queue going into the ground and he's on his own. He gets chatting to this other bloke who's on his own in front of him. This bloke from Barnsley. And my dad's like, oh, how much did you get your ticket for? And the geezer in front of him goes, I ain't got one. And my dad said, what? He goes, why are you queuing up? He goes, I'm getting in. I don't care what anyone says. I'm getting in.
No.
My dad went, you're a nutter, mate. You're a nutter. Look at all the security. There's not a chance in hell you're getting in. So anyway, they gradually get closer and closer to the turnstile, and this guy sort of says to my dad, look, can I just squeeze in behind you when you do yours? Because it's not, the turnstiles aren't like how they are now. Yeah, they would have been a bit easier to get in. So he goes, I'll stand right behind you and sneak in behind you when you do yours. And my dad's like, fucking hell, all right, whatever, yeah. Anyway,
difficult one for your dad, that as well, because it's like, well, if you get caught, I don't want to be associated with you.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to just met you in the queue. It's like we're old mates and I'm helping you out.
So they get to the front and towards the front, and on the other side of the turnstile, this woman in the United end faints right by the turnstile. All these security guards run to her to try and help her, and as they've all ran, my dad's done his ticket. The guys jumped over behind my dad. And he went and stood, literally, him and my dad shared a spot in front of their chair.
Wow.
For the game. And he said, because he was on his own and my dad was on his own, and he still remembers his name, but he spent 90 minutes with him and about a couple of hours after drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And he never spoke to him or never saw him again. And he said it was the most mental experience sharing it with this randomer. But like what you said about the second goal being a dream, my dad always says that the Sheringham goal went in and they were just elated. Like they went, he fell down about 5 rows.
Mm-hmm.
And he said the noise was so loud and no one was focusing on the game.
Yeah.
No one around him saw the Solskjaer goal.
Yeah.
And my dad
that makes
says
sense.
he looked over and just saw Solskjaer on his knees in the corner. And everyone was like, what the fuck's that? We scored again.
Yeah.
And then everyone realised and everyone just went mental.
Yeah. I mean, even when that first one went in, you're like, okay, extra time. We can do this in extra time. And then just to close it out like that, it seems barely possible now. It really does. What a night that was. Yeah. So I don't remember really the days before United were the force that they were, because like I say, I didn't particularly watch that much football. But as a United fan, so really for years, my only real experience of being a United fan, being a football fan and giving a shit was winning everything. Just seeing, gigs come through and then the class of 92 and then onwards. And so in the last couple of years, I have very much been like, oh, this is what being a football fan's like. Yeah. This sucks. This is rubbish. Wait, we're not winning everything? Oh, shit. Yeah, but I don't think I can get away with defecting to City. And I certainly can't get away with defecting to Liverpool.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. I was going to ask you, because let's just talk about rivalries for a sec. Now, I think the answer to this will vary depending on what decade you were born in. Because I know my dad certainly says Liverpool.
Yeah.
But what, for you, who is the one, Liverpool or City?
I mean, the general consensus among United fans would be that we hate City, but we hate Liverpool more. That's the general. That's how it generally goes. In terms of rivalry, in my lifetime, my experience of the Premier League and whatever, it was the Arsenal rivalry that I always found so gripping and intense, because they were fucking good, man. They were good. The fact that Ferguson and Wenger didn't particularly like each other only added a bit of spice to it.
Keane and Vieira.
I mean, that show, the Keane and Vieira Best of Enemies.
Oh, it's good, isn't it?
I mean, I reckon if anyone's not seen Keane and Vieira Best of Enemies, find it on. I think you can see it on YouTube. But even if you have seen it and you've not seen it for like 5 months, watch it again. Every time you watch it, it's just electric. It's so good.
The next one's going to be Keane and Little Best of Enemies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he'll be like, I don't even remember that, but thanks for reminding me, you dick. So yeah, that Arsenal rivalry for me was like, it was something special, and that Arsenal team was something special. And I think what's interesting is I think I think statistically during their heyday and our heyday, in that time, I think we outgunned them in terms of trophies. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody feel free to correct me if you listen.
No, we did. I think they had the FA Cups. But I feel like the leagues. Yeah, United definitely smashed it.
I think so. And of course we ended that 49 game unbeaten run in 2004, same year as the match. That's why I remember it. Alan Smith scored, I think. It was a Van Nistelrooy penalty and Rooney. Alan Smith squared it for Wayne Rooney. That's it.
Yeah.
Alan Smith was in, and he could have taken on the keeper, and he just squared it to Rooney for a tap, and it was like
the best thing about that penalty was that 9 months before he'd been
when Keown had jumped on him.
Yeah.
Took some bottle to score that penalty.
It's mad because that penalty he missed, there would be no Invincibles if that had gone in.
No, I know.
Yeah, mad. Isn't it?
I'm kind of glad there is though. I think the Invincibles deserve their place in history.
Yeah,
I do. I do. I mean, I know plenty of Man United fans will be going, "Boo, shut up!" But I think if you love football, the Invincibles, looking back, they were some team, and Bergkamp, sort of deft, delicate, graceful, but still brilliant. Could be nasty if he needed to be. Ashley, where were the holes in that team? Were there any in that first 11? Maybe at right back.
Yeah, who was the right back? Was it Lauren?
No, because when Kolo Touré was there, he was top level as well. Remember Kolo Touré was there, but was he one of the Invincibles?
I think the right back in the Invincibles was Lauren.
Yeah, I think for me, Lauren was the. I think he was still a top class player.
Yeah.
But for me, was he quite on the level of Ashley Cole? Campbell.
They had a world class 11, didn't they?
World class. I think for me, they had a world class 11, and then just a very, very, very top class player who maybe was quite just on it one notch below, maybe. But people might disagree. But their first 11 was extraordinary. But then again, I also think those are before the days like now, where you have someone like City and they have 2 world class 11s. I don't think Arsenal had. I think that they were in those days. You just had to try and plug gaps where you could, rather than have the kind of strength and depth that you see the biggest clubs have now, because the game's changed. And then that's what I was going to say. So I think we edged them. My opinion. Anyone's free to disagree, but I think in terms of sheer grit and winning mentality and the trophies that we won, I think Man United edged that Arsenal team and those 2 big Arsenal teams, the Invincibles and the previous one. But I think at that time, that first 11 was playing the best football possibly I'd ever seen at club level. I think that the Invincibles were playing some football that was unheard of since. I mean, I don't really remember the Liverpool teams of the 70s and 80s, so who knows? Do
you think that Arsenal Invincible team, what you were just touching on there, the 11 and how they were playing, do you think that surpasses what Liverpool have done this year? Interesting, that, isn't it? It is interesting because, I mean, it's a tough one. I think that Pep Guardiola changed the way people viewed football. Johan Cruyff's philosophy that Pep refined and perfected with Barcelona. And that Xavi, Iniesta, Pep's Barcelona, Messi, of course. That for me is the best team I've ever seen. The best first 11 I've ever seen. They just had everything. Apart from maybe Victor Valdez, who is some people love like a flamboyant keeper. Me, I want my keepers boring. I just want them to save, just not do anything stupid and just save shit. Thanks very much. I don't need them to dink it over anyone's head or anything like that. But whatever. That Barcelona team is, for me, the best club team I've ever seen. Before the City and Liverpool teams of the last few years, and before the greatest Man United team of my lifetime, which people would argue about the different lineups, but maybe Keane, Scholes, Beckham, Giggs, pick your defenders, pick your strikers, like an unarguably brilliant team. I do think that in terms of style, that Invincibles team played stylistically the tiki-taka, the fast passing and moving that then became more popularized with Pep a couple of years later. And I think that was pretty revolutionary
in this country. I don't think other people were doing. People were doing pass and move. Liverpool were doing pass and move. It's the Liverpool groove used to be the thing that they used to say at Liverpool. So like of course, passing and moving is the game, but that particular like intricate pattern of play, pass, that Pep popularized, I think the Invincibles were doing a few years before. That to me marks them out as something a bit different. So now you've got your Man City team. You expect that from them because that's Pep, and you expect it from teams that are probably at the top level because the game has changed. But it's interesting to me that Arsenal were doing that beforehand.
Interesting.
They were something. They were special. Keno in the Roy Keane in the Keane versus Vieira best of enemies. They're trying to argue about which the best combination team is, best Arsenal team with best thing. I actually can't remember what the outcome of it. I need to watch it again. But there is a funny bit where Vieira's going to Keane, what about Bergkamp? And Keane's going, Bergkamp? He can't get on a plane. You can't have him. What about the away games? It's really funny.
That's class.
Very funny.
So I've been asking everyone who comes on the pod this question at the end. If you could play any footballer, past or present, in a biopic of their life, who would you play and why?
I mean, I fear that people listening to this will probably say Yossi Benayoun first and foremost.
Good casting, that.
Especially with me floppy hair right now. I mean, he was a good player. He was a good player, but
I can't unsee it.
He was a good player. Don't get me wrong, but I'd rather it had been like Zidane or someone. You know, yeah.
You've even got the West Ham colours on as well.
I know, I have. What's that all about? I know.
I'll pop a photo up of this when it comes out. We got Benayoun on the pod.
Yeah, but if you know, another shout would be. I mean, I don't think it particularly looked like him or anything, but when I was a kid, who was when you were growing up and you were a kid? You know, you always like pretended when you're on the playground to be some player. Like, so now people might be going, Messi or Ronaldo or whatever. Who did you used to pretend to be?
Van Nistelrooy.
Right. See, for me, it was Giggs. But it makes sense. In 1992, Giggsy was, I think, 18, 19, and he broke through into the team. Or maybe 1991, something like that. I was like 11, 12. Giggsy comes into the team 18, 19. So he's young enough for me to be like, oh, Ryan Giggs. He was an exciting player, exploded onto the scene. But also, like me, very skinny. I was so skinny when I was playing. Very skinny, left-footed, floppy hair, from Manchester, played for Man United, played on the left. So for me, I was always like, I'm Giggsy. I was basically exactly like Ryan Giggs, but without the mercurial world-class talent of football. And the slightly unusual choices when it comes to dating. Yeah, so I'd like to say Ryan Giggs, but I fear that probably casting-wise, I might be Yossi Benayoun.
Love that. Ralf, mate, I'll see you soon, man.
Top man. Cheers, Charlie.